Okay, Shabbat Shalom. I think I'll kick-start it a little earlier, and I do have a recording to play. So what I'll do is I'll play the recording, and then I'm still here, and which I will take the class from Rabbi Kefa when he finishes, and then I can wrap up, and then any questions, anything's coming up, and anything I want to mention, I will do that probably towards the end. So let me kickstart the recording. This is going to be an interesting history lesson. Stay tuned.
This is your calling in the gate. Rabbi Simon, I am certainly true that you all have been great. We just had the Feast of Tabernacles, Sukkot, and we had some other festivals before that. I'm pretty sure that they all went very well for all of you across the board, in North America, in Europe, and everywhere else. And for us in the East as well. Weather is a little more pleasant these days. It's been very, very hot weather over here. We've been hitting almost 90 plus temperatures in the last few days. Especially when I went to the coastal city of Karachi, we regularly hit temperatures of 90 plus. And it was very humid in that place. But I learned to survive without a air conditioner, air cooler. I learned to survive without it, and I stayed there a good number of days, and I spent great time over there with some great people. I was very humbled by what I saw, and I was able to impart great teachings to some people over there who really needed them, and I really felt that my visit there was for them, especially one particular widow as well that I went to and visited her house. I prayed for her. I removed some energy blocks in her house. I did some other things and gave her some good guidance that she may prosper with her children as she goes along the way. But today I think it's time to tell you a story. And you're going to enjoy this story because, there's a lot of myths and legends. And I don't like to dwell on legends and myths. They're good. Legends are always good. We like legends and we like mythology as well. Because as children, when we are brought up, we are told fairy tale stories. We are told stories about lands that have giants. Giant and the Beanstalk, if you remember the movie, probably as a kid, you all saw them. I saw that as a kid. And there's other movies that we all saw and we love. And, Harry Potter movies are the kind of movies that even today people love. Children love those movies because they have a little bit of magic, a little bit of adventure. Movies like Narnia and other movies that are around, they kind of have a good, feel factor of adventure. I'm always in favor of movies like that. Unfortunately, in the Christian world, they're deaf and dumb. Unfortunately. I won't say all of them are deaf and dumb, but many of them are deaf and dumb and walking like robots. And they think they're going to find Jesus in the church. Just as anybody else thinks they're going to find God in a building. You're not going to find God in a building. You're not going to find Jesus in a church. You're definitely not going to find God in a temple in Israel either. There is no temple in Israel. God is not there. So, we'll come back to God where God is. But I wanted to tell you a story today to remove some mythologies that probably a lot of Christians are brought up with. I particularly wasn't brought up with this myth, but I heard it many times. I listened to it, I chuckled, then I listened to it because it's just a myth. It's not true. Because I want to explain to you today that the line of Judah, as you know, that many kings came from the line of Judah. Not just Judah. Kings came from other lines as well. The first king of Israel wasn't from Judah. If you ever studied the Bible as a student, if you ever read it, you would know that the first king was not from Judah. You will know the name of that first king as well. I shouldn't have to tell you, but I will, because you may be new, you may be somebody who's never heard this, and I will entertain you today. As a Levite, as a Kohen in the gate, the first king of Israel, and I'm not counting Moses as a king because he never took up throne. Now Moses led a nation. But the first king of Israel was from the tribe of Benjamin, and his name was Shaul. They call him Saul in English. Okay? He was the first king of Israel. And he was a great king. There's nothing wrong with him. He was a righteous man. He did everything right in the beginning. But then, like other kings, he made mistakes. And he fell apart. He tried to murder King David, who God chose as the next king. And at that point in history, as always there is, just like today, there's always a Levite, there's always a Kohen present. Don't ever think a Kohen is not present. There's always one present. And there was one called Samuel the prophet. He was the leader, and he was a man behind the scenes. But I want to tell you something about some of our history. I want to fast forward to the Maccabees' history. There was a time period that we did not have our temple. We lost it. The temple was owned or operated by the Greek people in Greece. They ruled our lands in Israel and other surrounding lands in the Middle East. They ruled all the way to Afghanistan. In fact, Alexander the Great, he was a great leader, great fighter, a young man. He died early. I think he died around 32, 33 years of age. But he was a great fighter. He controlled Mesopotamia. He had a wife in Afghanistan, and he had a son there as well. And he traveled back and forth. I would say that Alexander the Great was a great man, and one that should be remembered. Why? Because we have a little bit of history connected with him. And I'm going to tell you a story today that you're going to like. And you're going to remember this, and you may come back to listen to this again and again. And you may want to even save this recording for future reference. There was a time that when we lost our temple, and Alexander the Great, we're talking about 300 plus years before the so-called birth of Jesus of Nazareth. 300 plus years. In this time, Alexander the Great had, conquered what was then known as majority of the world. And he then decided to go to Jerusalem. He was heading into Israel. He was going someplace else, but he asked his commanders to stop and turn to Jerusalem. For some reason, he decided to pay homage to the temple. And his commanders, of course, he is a king. He can do whatever he wants to. It's his, he rules, he reigns. And they said, no problem. And so Alexander headed towards Jerusalem to the temple. At that time, there was a high priest by the name of Juda, who was situated in Jerusalem. He was he was basically the head of the community, and he ran things as we know it. So what happened? As soon as Alexander the Great saw this high priest, he was riding his horse. And by the way, Alexander the Great's horse is buried in Pakistan, in the north. I know the place where it is. I haven't been there. I didn't go right to the place where his horse was buried, but I went pretty close to it. People go there even today to pay homage. They go to mark the grave where Alexander the Great's horse is buried, in Pakistan, near the Himalaya mountains. And this is where I'm speaking from. So I think I have pretty good accurate idea of history of who Alexander was and what happened, because he came to this country and he was defeated in a city called Multan. And Multan is somewhere down the south. He was defeated in Multan, and he was hit by an arrow in his lung, and his lung was pierced and collapsed. And then his physicians, they were really good physicians, good doctors in those days. They were not like your present doctors who just want to cut you and chop you up, and everything you ask for, they want to operate on you. But these doctors, they recovered him quickly from his injury. And they told him, they said, that's it. Alexander, you need to stop. This is where the war stops. Because he wanted to go forward. And if he had gone forward, he would have probably ended up in China, or maybe even Korea or somewhere like that. China, Korea, Philippines, somewhere over there. He probably would have conquered all of those regions as well if he had gone that way. But I'm pretty sure he would have met severe resistance in China, because Chinese people, kung fu masters and all that, and so are the Koreans, martial arts masters. So he will definitely receive resistance. But the kind of army that he had, the kind of man he was, there are high number of chances that he may have conquered some of these countries for maybe a short while. Because when he conquered Afghanistan, he conquered it for only 3 years. And he wrote to his mother and said, Mom, I'm a lion. And if you think I'm a lion, I fight like a lion. He said, every step of the way in Afghanistan, there is a lion that I have to fight. This is how strong the people are over here. So very, very difficult to control these people. And he could not control those people for more than 3 years. He lost Afghanistan after 3 years. Probably after his death, his generals couldn't control it. Now he goes to Israel. Let's come back to Israel. And he comes off his horse when he sees Juda, the high priest. And he bows to the ground in front of the high priest. His commanders are standing there. Part of his battalion, his army is standing there, and they're thinking, wow, our king, our leader, had just bowed to the high priest. They're really surprised. They're like, how come Alexander the Great, who everybody comes to him and bows before him, how come he's bowed before the high priest? And you know what he said? They asked him, they said, may we ask why you did this act? And he said, see that man? He wears a tiara. He basically had a turban. The high priest had a turban on his head with Yud-He-Wah-He, the sacred name of God, on his turban in golden etched letters, pure gold. When he looked at that name, he bowed before it. And he gave respect to the high priest. And he said, see that name? He said, all the battles I won, all the battles that I won, I saw this name in the sky before I won those battles. You may have heard the story about Constantine, having seen a cross in the sky, and he became a Christian. You heard those kind of legends, but this is a true story, by the way. He actually bowed before the name of God, Bishem Adonai. Blessed be the name of his kingdom forever and ever. What a wonderful sight. This man who was a great soldier, great fighter, he steps off his horse and he bows before God's name, and he salutes to the priest. And then he offers the priest a sacrifice to the temple. He asks him, I want to sacrifice in the temple. And he asks him what kind of sacrifice is allowed. And then the priest instructs him what kind of sacrifices are allowed. And he then offers a sacrifice in the temple to the name of God. Did you ever hear of that story? I don't hear of this story in schools. I've never heard of this story in a British school or an American school. But in Pakistan, people know about Alexander the Great. They call him Skandar-e-Azam. They have heard of him because they dealt with him over here. They haven't forgotten him yet. So whenever I go past, I talk about him, and they ears perk up, and they, yes, Skandar-e-Azam, Alexander the Great. We know about him. Because they do talk about him over here in this part of the land. And so, because he did conquer parts of northern Pakistan. And here in those old days, they had armies of elephants. People used to ride on elephants and attack their enemy. And what Alexander did when he was fighting with the elephant armies, he'd never faced such an army on horseback. He cut the trunk of the elephant. I tell you, what a sight. He cut the trunk of the elephant, and the poor elephant, without a trunk, he just fell down and died. Couldn't survive. That was his lifeline. So Alexander the Great bows before the high priest before God's name and offers a sacrifice in the temple. Then Alexander asks the high priest, would you put up my statue in the temple as a memento? And the high priest Juda said, no, we are not allowed to do that. He then said, what can you do for me as a visit to Israel? Then the high priest said, from today, I will instruct the people over here that whenever they have a son that is born, they are allowed to put your name as their son's name. So Alexander became a popular name among Jewish people in Israel because of his visit. Today, you're probably going to find many Jews in the world today, they have Alexander as a name. I mean, that would be a Gentile name, by the way, because they have two names, a Hebrew name and a Gentile name. But there's another part of the story about Lion of Judah. Well, let me tell you about the cat of Judah, not the Lion of Judah. It's really the cat of Judah. And that's really the truth. I'm giving it to you straight as it is. You've heard these stories in churches, messianic places, that, the Lion of Judah, and he's going to come rolling down, and, the Messiah's going to come, on his white horse, and maybe he's going to have a few lions on his left and right. But there is no such thing, because it was a symbol. And the symbol, let me tell you what actually happened. Because I think it's time to tell the truth now, and move away from the legend a little bit. And like I said, I like legends as well. Just like you like legends, I love legends. I like legends and I love stories like this. So it's not like I'm against any legend. And they're great stories to tell little children, because it builds up their morale and allows them to function and to be better people in their life and to be great people in their life. What happened with the Lion of Judah is, how did he become a cat and not a lion? Is that just before the Maccabees came, and the Maccabees were a Kohanim family, a priestly family in Israel. When Israel was taken over by the Greek people, Greece, everybody was in hiding. Torah was banned. Circumcision was banned. Gymnasiums were built. And in those days, gymnasiums were not like today, where you go and you wear your leotards, or you wear your t-shirt and joggers and you go and do some weight training and gym. In those days, gyms were operated by the Greeks fully naked. Everybody was naked in the gym training. And whatever training they did, whether it's gymnastics, whether it's calisthenics, whatever, they were without any dresses. So what happened, the Jews who became Greekanized, which we call Greek Jews, hybrids, they basically stopped doing circumcision. They said, we don't want to circumcise, because of course if you are naked and you look at their member, it's not circumcised. It was like that. But the Jews who were circumcised, who refused not to stop circumcision, they would hide, they would cover up their private parts in such a way that they look like they're not circumcised, but they were circumcised. There were Jews like that as well. So we had a great problem with Hellenistic Jews. These are the hybrids, the bastards that we had to deal with. So how did we deal with them? Well, let me tell you the story of Judah the cat. Because Judah, you're going to like this story. Judah the cat. When Alexander came, and before he even started any fighting, before his generals came and started any fighting, we had no fights with Alexander. Alexander did not fight with us. He actually paid homage to us, and he went. Then he died soon after, and he placed 4 generals. And those 4 generals, one of them started the war. And he sent battalions into Israel, and that's when the Maccabees came. It was about 165 during that time, 165 BCE, before the birth of Jesus of Nazareth, if you believe that he was ever born, but before his birth. And before his birth, there was war in Israel. There was civil war. And Judah the cat, you know what Judah the cat did? When the battalions came of the Greek, Judah the cat said, hey, look, we don't want to fight. We're not interested in fighting. Here is a piece of land. It's yours to take. Do what you like. Please leave us alone. This, by the way, is a true story of Judah the cat. Don't ever say Judah the lion. Judah is a cat and was a cat. Judah gave up Israel like the French Revolution. Remember the French Revolution? Remember the French in World War III? If you ever know about World War II, if you ever heard about World War II, France was the first country that gave up to Hitler. Hitler marched into France and the whole of France surrendered. Olivia, you probably know this. It's part of your history. They surrendered first. Then the Americans came with the British, because the British were being... London was pounded with bombs and London was rubble. Because I read London's history and I saw the pictures as well in the museums. And London was rubble and London did not give up. The British did not give up. The British didn't have the firepower. They didn't have the ammunition. And they didn't have the factories to make ammunition. That was the difficulty they had. And the British tanks were useless against German tanks. The German tanks were very superior, much superior quality. Their armament was of superior quality. And it was very difficult. But the British, they did great with what they had. They had their little flimsical tanks, hardly could fire very far away. But the British people, they were fighters. They were not giver-uppers. They said, we are not going to give up. We're not going to give up to Hitler. No way. They refused to give up. They were good fighters, good people. And then America got involved. And British then reached out to America because Germany sent spies into America. They landed on the seashores of America. They started to spy on America, and America became involved. And the first people that America freed? The first people that America freed were the French. So the French should give thanks to the Americans today, because they are the ones who came to your rescue. With the British, by the way, and British should be the second. Because America had the firepower. They had the factories. They had the means. They had the resources. God placed this nation at the forefront with England. They joined England, shook hands with England, with Great Britain, and they went and fought Germany and smashed Germany to bits. America and Great Britain, England, they smashed Germany to bits when they joined hands together. And they had victory after victory. So, whatever the case, whatever the politics, I always say this: the British are great people and so are the Americans. I lived in both of these people. I had the privilege to live in both of these countries. And I'm a citizen of both countries. I have the privilege to be the citizen of both these countries. So, thank God that I am in these nations. Thank God for America. Thank God for Britain. But I'm going to say this, that let's come back to the Judah the cat. Judah the cat was the first one to give up like the French. He just gave up. He was like, hey, come on, we don't want to fight. And if you want to read about it, I challenge you to go and read about this story in the Jewish sources. What's called the Britannica is a British one. Now we also have the Jewish version of it. You can go and read up about Judah's cat behavior in their chronicles. The Chronicles of Narnia. You can read up in the Chronicles what happened. Judah was the first one to give up. And the priests, they were in hiding. They were preparing for guerrilla warfare. And then the priestly family decided to come up. They said, enough is enough. This little cat has already given up. Judah's already given up. And nobody else wants to fight. Everybody's afraid. All the other tribes, they were all, remember, God dispersed the 10 tribes back in the 7th century BCE. In Isaiah's time, we didn't have the 10 tribes over there. All we had was Judah, Benjamin, and the Levites who were left, the Kohanim who were left in Israel. That's all we had. So this Kohanim family rose up for the Maccabees. Maccabees means a hammer. They rose up, one family. Judah Maccabee and his 5 sons. They said, we are going to take charge. We are going to restore Israel back. We're going to take the temple. We're going to restore the temple back. And we're going to restore Israel back to his glory. Because it is up to us now. Because Judah the cat has already betrayed us. He's already gone. He doesn't want to fight the enemy. So they went round. They came. And they went round knocking on doors and saying, who wants to stand with us? Who wants to fight with us? And they built a small guerrilla army. And that guerrilla army lived in the forests, in the jungles. But Judah Maccabee was the one who controlled this army, this little guerrilla warfare. And they were the ones who said, we're going to free the temple. Because once again in history, the priestly family had to stand up. The Kohanim had to stand up and bring Israel back together. Whenever Israel fell, we stood up and brought Israel back. There was no one else. God put us at the front as warriors, as leaders. We led Israel. And there was a huge army. The Greek people had a big army. They sent a big army. They said, hey, those little band of warriors over there, we're going to send a big army and smash them up. The Seleucid generals, they sent an army with the other generals mixed up. They said, we're going to send an army, because there was a general in Egypt, it was general in Seleucus, and there was 2 others, and they decided to send a big army to fight the Maccabees. The Maccabees prayed to God, and they said, give us strength, that we may smash this army. Even the army is great and big, but we are going to defeat it by your name. This is how powerful God's name is. I don't know if you ever tried it. Try it sometimes. You will know how powerful our God's name is. The big army came from Greece, and the Maccabees, the priestly family, they smashed it to bits. They won the war. They took the temple back. By the time they took the temple back, it was already December. They were meant to take the temple back around September, so they could celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles together and give thanks to God. But it was already late. 3 months had passed. Christmas for the Europeans was close by, because they were going to celebrate their, Christmas festival. It wasn't used to be called Christmas, by the way. It was given a different name at that time. And then at that time, this idea that you're told today is totally a whitewash, that we had a Hanukkah. We did not have a Hanukkah with 9 candelabras or 9 wicks. This is totally BS. We had no Hanukkah. With 8 or even 9, we had a menorah in the temple. The priestly family of the Maccabees went downstairs to the temple, and they found their menorah. And what is told and what is written, this is what I'm teaching you is what is written. Now, we don't need to delve into how true it is, but this is what's been written by the Jewish historians, that they found one small oil bottle of pure olive oil, cold pressed, and they put that into the menorah, and they prayed to God, and they said, as the priests say, they use the name of God. They said, Master Yahweh, we come before you, and we are sorry that we were not able to celebrate our festival of Sukkot at the right time, but please be gracious to us. Allow us to celebrate the same festival 3 months late. By the way, there is no such thing as Hanukkah. This is a made-up myth by the Jewish people much, much later. There was no such thing as Hanukkah. This is all a made-up mythology. they were actually celebrating the Feast of Tabernacles in December. And God, according to the written records, and some Jews agree and some disagree, but who cares anyway, because they are the cats and the dogs over there anyway, as you know what I think of them. They are not the people who actually established the temple anyway. So, nevertheless, they maintain the land. That's a great thing. Good for them that they do maintain the land and they have a hold on it, so that at least there is a presence. When God returns to that land, the presence of God will be there and we'll have a future temple. So that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. But what I'm trying to tell you is that one bottle of olive oil burnt for 7 days, actually 8 days, more than 7 days. It continued to burn, it did not finish. That's what's written. It continued to burn until they were able to produce more virgin olive oil, because they had to keep the menorah lit all the time as a light to the nations. So who restored the temple? Was it Judah the cat or was it the Kohanim? Number one mistake that people need to restore. Who led Israel out of battles? Was it Judah the cat or was it Levite the priests, the Kohanim? I want you to take you back to Phinehas, the priest. Remember when he fought the magician, Balaam, who was known as Balaam the magician, when he fought him. And what is told is that Balaam, using his magic, he was a great magician. He was sent to curse Israel, but he could not utter a curse against Israel. He was a greedy man. He took money from the king of Moab, and he wanted to curse Israel because the king wanted him to curse Israel to destroy Israel, the children of Israel. But God would not allow him. God did not allow him to curse Israel. Every time he opened his mouth, he could only open his mouth with a blessing, not a curse. Let me read something to you over here. What Moses wrote in chapter 33 of the book of Deuteronomy. And this is the blessing wherewith Musa, the man of Elohim, blessed the children of Israel before his death. And he said, Yahweh came from Sinai and rose up from Seir to them. He shined forth from Mount Paran, and he came with 10,000s of his holy ones. From his right hand went a royal decree for them. Yes, he loved the people. All his holy Kedoshim, all his holy saints are in your hand, and they sat down at your feet. Everyone shall receive of your words. Musa commanded us a Torah, even the inheritance of the congregation of Yaakov. And he was king in Yeshurun when the heads of the people and the tribes of Israel were gathered together. Read what it says, that Moses commanded a Torah. Moses. And who are the teachers? In verse 10 it says about the Levites, about the Kohanim. It says, they shall teach Yaakov, Jacob meaning Israel, your judgments, and Israel your Torah. They shall put incense before you, and hold burnt sacrifice upon your altar. Bless Yahweh his might, and accept the work of his hands. Smite through the loins of them that rise against him, and of them that hate him, that they rise not again. You know who that is for? That is for the Levites. Because Moses left a blessing for the Levites, saying that anybody that rises up against the Levites will be smashed. He will not be able to stand, and he will not be able to live to tell the tale. And that's actually what happened. This is why Phinehas was able to defeat this magician. You know, the story goes that the magician climbed up. You know, he climbed up. He started to fly. This is how one of the legends goes, that Balaam, he started to fly. When Phinehas came to fight with him, he started to fly up. And Phinehas used the name of God, and he also flew. And he beat him black and blue in the air. And he brought him to the ground. And he presented him before the elders of Israel. And they sentenced him to death. And that's where Bilam was killed, through Phineas. If you ever get a chance, read the stories in the book of Numbers. I encourage you to read it. You will enjoy the story. Book of Numbers. It talks about the story of Phineas. And it's a great story. Now we must also remember that what happened. Why I keep telling you about Judah the cat, because we had some rabbis in the past who made some mistakes. And we had some evil, Knievel Jews as well, who we probably call Hellenistic Jews. So we also had the Samaritans. And we had a really interesting contrast. The Jews, and when I say the Jews, I'm talking about the righteous Jews, not talking about the Hellenistic Jews. They hated the Samaritans because the Samaritans, with the permission of the Greek armies, they built a temple in the north, under Mount Gerizim. But, they thought, now they've got to one up on the Jews. They just decided to direct all worship to, of course, to Samaria. And by the way, when I went to Israel, I did go to Samaria more than one time, many times. In fact, I think Rabbi Kefa probably went there as well, to Samaria. We had a car driving all over the place in Israel back in 2014, and even before that. But there was a man there that when Sanballat III, this man was technically what I might call a hybrid. When he died, the same Samaritans that got permission from the Greeks, Alexander, to build their temple, the same Samaritans and the same Greek people who allowed them, God wasn't very pleased with their actions, and God used the same Greek people to destroy the temple. Did you know that? That the temple at Mount Gerizim was destroyed by the Greeks in a rebellion caused by the Samaritans. And nobody really knows to this day why that rebellion happened. In punishment for the city of Samaria, where I actually went more than one time, Alexander was the one who destroyed the city of Samaria and banished the Samaritans from the city. And then the Samaritans went to live at the foot of Mount Gerizim, which they call their sacred mountain. And from that point onwards, Samaria had two religious groups, the Samaritans and the religious or the righteous Jews around the area of Mount Gerizim. Now this city became the Greek city. Can you imagine that? That right in the middle or in the north of Israel, supposed to be the Holy Land, we had a Greek city and lots of Gentiles were living there. Just think about that for a second. Think about it. It's like saying, there's no offense to the Chinese or Japanese. I mean, it's like you might go to New York and, you find a district of New York and you find the whole of that district is occupied by Japanese people or Chinese people. And you think, what the heck? Is it supposed to be New York or is it supposed to be China or Japan? No disrespect to them, but this is how it was. Like we have Chinatown, lots of Chinese. And it's all good. There's nothing wrong with that. Chinese, they congregate together, they build their restaurants, they live close by, they help each other. It's all a good thing. Nothing wrong with that. So we had a whole city full of these Hellenistic bastard Jews. Yes, bastard Jews. Why do I call them bastard? Because they were rebellious. They did not like the God of Israel. They did not like his name. They built their own temple. So I will just give it to you as it is. I'm not going to hide it. Why should I? I'll give you what it is. Nevertheless, God himself dealt with these people. God himself dealt with these people. We didn't have to do nothing. Like we had to do something. Like we had to send an army. Looks like my speaker is running out. 1 second. Power is running out. Give me a moment, please. Okay. We didn't have to do nothing. In fact, God Himself orchestrated a rebellion in that city and allowed that temple to be destroyed. Then we had some of our leaders, we had Rabbi Kefa who made a mistake and he called Kosiva, Bar Kosiva, or Simon Bar Kosiva, if that's what you want to call him. He called him a Messiah, which of course was a big mistake. But by the way, they were minting coins. Did you know that we had coins with the high priest's names on there? Did you know that? The high priest or the priests who controlled Israel, they became the kings. They became the kings of the land for quite a number of years. There's a whole history behind it. I mean, I could spend a whole day explaining the history to you, but I don't want to do that because it'll take up a lot of time. It's already 40 minutes. And I think this is quite an interesting story. And I want to wind it up. When I tell you that we became kings, there is no such thing as only Judah can be king. This is myth. So let's put the myth away and let's start looking at what's reality. The reality is this. Whenever our people are in trouble, the priests can become kings as well as the high priests. We are allowed to do that. And you may say, well, where is it in the Torah? Well, the Torah tells you who is a teacher. It tells you that the Levites are your teachers, the Kohanim are your teachers. So the teachers decide, because Yahweh Himself said that when you have a controversy amongst you and you don't know what the heck to do, you go to the Kohen in the gate, and what he tells you is my word. He speaks my word, and you must listen to him. So we had the authority to make kings and break kings, and we did do that. We restored Israel back to its former glory. And then what happened afterwards? As soon as we departed, and as soon as we gave the throne away, another hybrid Jewish man came by the name of Herod. You all heard about Herod. I encourage you to read about him as well. He came and he took over the temple. He killed many righteous people. He was a murderer, another bastard. He was a murderer. He killed many righteous Jews. He shed much blood. And then he built a temple in order to restore, or let's say, to seek some kind of forgiveness for his evil that he did. But I think I'll stop over here, because I think I've given you enough of history to give you an idea that who are the real heroes behind the scene, and who are the cats, and who are the tigers. But let me tell you something else, and I don't think there is probably, maybe I should tell you this story, because it's right towards the end. And I'll tell you this. Consider this a story, and this is a real story, by the way. This is not a myth. There was a man, a magician in this country, a dirty magician, evil man. He destroyed many people's homes with black magic. And one day, the Kohen in the gate visited this country, and the name shall be kept secret, who that Kohen in the gate is. And a news was brought to this Kohen that there is an evil man in the city, and because of him, many families have been destroyed by his black magic. Over the years, because the Kohen just arrived yesterday, and he was given this news that this man has destroyed many families. Can you please put an end to this man, so that he may not destroy more families? Remember Balaam the magician? Remember Phineas? And remember the Kohen in the gate over here. So the Kohen in the gate said, who is this man? And he was given the name, the location, where he lives, everything. And so the Kohen said, I will make investigation. If the story is true, an end will be put to this man forever. He will not live to see next year. He will not, the Kohen said he will not live to see 2021's end. A challenge was given. They said to the Kohen in the gate, if you really are a Kohen, if you really are a Kohen, and they challenged him. Sorry about that, phone calls are coming in. And they challenged him and they said, if you really are a Kohen in the gate and you have the power given to you by God, then please do something about this. So the Kohen made the investigations and found out that the stories were true. This particular magician had committed, him and his father. His father died, but he passed his dirty magic onto him. And he, alongside his family, I'm going to say his family, his wife was less involved than him. He was more involved, and they destroyed many families with black magic. The Kohen in gate put a curse on that man, death curse, and the Kohen declared that this man will not live to see 2021's end. 3 weeks ago, that man died. When the Kohen puts a curse, when the Kohen puts a death wish on somebody, no one can reverse it. This has never happened in the history of the Kohanim, except one time. With Phineas, this is the second time in history this happened. So write it down. That don't underestimate the Kohanim. We are not the cats. We are the tigers. We are the warriors. When we go to war, we don't start wars, we finish them. And unfortunately, in this particular scenario, it was such an act that such an individual was allowed to live. Who knows how many more families he would destroy. And you know what happened to him? Maybe someday I'll tell that story as well to you, what happened and how it all happened. But he just collapsed. One day he was just standing and he collapsed. And they took him to the hospital and they said that his lung collapsed, right lung collapsed, and he's going to die in a very short amount of time. And they said, take him home and give him all the care you want. They put him on oxygen and they said, that's it, his time is up. Completely healthy man. He's completely healthy, standing there, in the street. And then he just fell. That is the power of the curse of the Kohanim. Our blessing is great, but our curse is greater. So think carefully. Think very carefully. When you go to war with the Kohanim, think very carefully who you're going to fight with. And I say this lightly. Don't take it lightly. I say it lightly. This is why God has placed us at the forefront with respect, honor, and dignity to teach Israel Torah. It's a privilege. It's a privilege to teach the Torah. And many people claim to teach the Torah, but do they really teach it? You all know the truth about that. But let me give you one final thing that I want to teach you. Because some of you struggle with affirmations, and you repeat affirmations, and even though you repeat them, things don't seem to be changing in your 3D world, and you get disheartened. And some of you come back to me and say that I'm doing my affirmation, and I'm doing it every day, but I don't see any changes. What am I doing wrong? Now, there is such a thing as an affirmation. There is an affirmation and there is an affirmation with an O, A-F-F-O, okay? Instead of the A-F-F-I. An affirmation is a present tense statement. Something like, I am a millionaire. And an affirmation is something like, why am I a millionaire? It's a question. I have found in my studies and my experiments that an affirmation works much better than an affirmation. It's much quicker. And sometimes it is better to use affirmations and not an affirmation. I think I've talked about this in the past, but I didn't explain it as thoroughly. So instead of saying, I have received $1 million, you may want to rephrase it by saying, why have I received $1 million? And why am I spending it to better my life? It's a question. A question cannot be challenged by your mind. But a statement such as, I have received $1 million can be challenged. Because your mind might say, hey, but you only got $10 in the bank. And you might short circuit yourself. But when you say, why have I received $1 million? That statement cannot be challenged. Because why? The mind doesn't know why. The mind can't challenge that statement. It doesn't know. It doesn't care. If you told your subconscious that it is night when it was day, it doesn't care. It believes it. If you told your subconscious, I see stars and there was nothing in the clouds, it will believe it. Because that is the connection to God. That is the connection to I am. So this is what you must do. Whether you're doing affirmations or afformations, it doesn't matter if you believe in them or not. You might think, hey, if I don't believe in affirmation, it won't work. No. Even if you don't believe in your affirmations, they'll still work. All affirmations. They will still work. But do not worry about 3D. They are working behind the scenes. Continue with your affirmations. Do not give up. Do not give up. You may have to rephrase, but continue. Continue to say them properly. And you don't have to say them out loud. You may have people around you. You might be in the office. Say it in your mind. Use the right times. Here is a technique that I'm going to give you. And I'm going to play this little recording from Neville. And this might help. Because then I can, speak a little bit about it. Here's a little recording. Okay. How to put your wonderful imagination right into the feeling of your wish fulfilled. And let it remain there and fall asleep in that state. And I promise you from my own experience, you will realize the state in which you sleep if you will actually feel yourself right into the situation of your fulfilled desire and continue therein until you fall asleep. As you feel yourself right into it, remain in it until you give it all the tones of reality, until you give it all the sensory vividness of reality. As you do it, in that state, quietly fall into sleep. And in a way you will never know, whenever consciously devise the means that will be employed, you will find yourself moving across a series of events, leading you towards the objective realization of this state. Okay, so let me explain this, what he just said. What Neville said comes right out of the Bible. And I think it is the right point at this time I tell you where. In the Song of Solomon, chapter 3, verse 1, it says, by night on my bed, I sought him whom my soul loves. I sought him, but I found him not. And then the next verse, I will rise now and go about the city in the streets and the broad ways. I will seek him whom my soul loves. I sought him, but I found him not. Okay? What does that mean? It means that you is exactly what Neville just said. You devise a plan. You devise an idea. Let's say you want a car or a home or $10 million. Doesn't matter how many million. I'm just giving you an idea of 10. Might be $100 million. And you devise that you want this much money, or you want this nice house, an apartment, or that you want a nice car, a sedan maybe, or maybe some other car. And what you do is you close your eyes. You go into what's called SATS, state akin to sleep. It doesn't have to be at night. It could be any time of the day. State akin to sleep. And this is how you get to it. You close your eyes. You turn your eyes 45 degrees upward. to bring yourself into a different theta state, because you're in beta state right now. If you're fully awake, you're in beta. You're going to take yourself into theta, into delta, and then back into beta. So, in order to get into theta state, you're going to turn your eyes up, point upwards 45 degrees, eyes closed. Count back from 10 to 0. Do it 2 times. And then relax your eyes and keep them closed. This is now going to take you into the first part of theta state. And then you start to imagine, start to see yourself, that house, that apartment, that beautiful apartment where you are living, where you are sitting down, maybe you're eating a meal, maybe you're having a conversation with somebody, in whatever part of the house. Maybe you're in the yard enjoying your flowers. Maybe you're in the kitchen cooking. If you love cooking, you're in the kitchen cooking. You're cooking your favorite dish. Might be popcorn. It might be something else. Might be grilled fish. Maybe it's a steak. You're making your favorite dish. And you're there. You're experiencing the joy. You can smell the flavor of the steak. You can smell it. You can feel it so real in your imagination. And as you go deeper into your imagination, you continue to feel that state. That is a state. You continue to feel it. You're there. And you love this environment, this house, this apartment. This is what an apartment. For a car, you're driving the car. You're sitting holding the steering wheel. You smell the car's leather. Perhaps it's a leather, perhaps it's a fabric. Whatever it is, you smell it. You touch the steering wheel. You feel the gear knob, the lever where you change gears, automatic or manual, mostly automatic in America. And you are driving that car and you feel like a king or a queen that you are. Remember, you are saints. Remember, you're sons and daughters of a king. Never forget that. You are the sons and daughters of a king, the King of Kings who lives above in his glory. And you feel that car as real. You know, maybe you stop at a gas station and you fill gas. Everything is real in your imagination. You don't even need to be speaking to nobody. And you do that. That's for a car. What about money? You know, money could be that you have bundles of money, cash in your hand. Maybe they're on your bed, a pile of cash. You're counting it. You count $1 million over there on the bed in one pile. Maybe there's 10 piles over there of $10 million. It's one way. You know, you smell the money. You look at it, $100 bills. Perhaps you've gone to the bank and you ask the cashier, you know, the bank teller, and you say to the bank teller, ma'am, or sir, whoever is sitting there, could you please tell me the balance in my account? And if it's the man or the woman says to you, if you're a woman, she says, ma'am, your balance is $10 million and a few cents over that. And if you're a man, the woman says, sir, your balance in the bank is $10,153. Always go a little bit over. You repeat that scene in your sad state, in the state akin to sleep. You're not asleep and you're not fully awake. You're in the middle. And you continue to repeating that state. And you might, whilst you're repeating it in the daytime, you don't do it when you're at home or in a place, not in a factory, not in a work environment. Don't do it in an office while you're working or driving. Don't do it while you're driving. Park your car, sit down and do it. Close your eyes and do it. If you do that state about 2 times a day, maybe 3 times a day, and if you can't, then maybe do it at least 1 time a day. Do it every day for 1 month. Every day for 1 month, alongside your affirmations, you will see a bridge of incidents. Things will start to change. Things will start to happen, and before you know it, you have that money in your bank, or that nice apartment, or that beautiful car. You will start to see, how would you know it? How would you know that it's happening? Very, very easy. You will see synchronicities. Let's say you wanted to have $10 million. What's the synchronicity of $10 million? You meet up with a friend, and a friend starts talking about millions of dollars, and they say, you know what, it'd be nice if I got $10 million, or maybe something similar. That's a synchronicity. That means God has heard your plea. God has heard it. God is working behind the scenes. Never, ever give up. You continue to repeat that. Let me tell you a little story. The other day, 2 days ago, a friend of mine came to me and he met me. He said, let's go and see a car. There's a new car in the town and I want to show it to you. It's really, really nice. And he said, the TX Land Cruiser, it's nothing. He said, that's a piece of junk. He said, let me show you a really nice car. And you can see it and you can decide if it's a good car or not. I said, yeah, let's go. Let's go to the garage. It was a Kia. They call it a Kia over here, but we call it a Kia, I think, in America. It was a Kia Carnival. I will do a little search on it. It's an 8-seater car. Beautiful, beautiful leather seats car. I went over there into the garage and I said, I want to sit in the garage in that car. I want to touch it and feel it. He said, okay, let's go. So we go to the garage. We go and see, we asked the lady over there, ma'am, we would like to see the Kia Carnival. She says, yeah, it's over there. She takes us there, she gives us the paperwork, and we ask the price. And I said, I want to sit in the car and I want to start it. So she brings the key, and it's a keyless start. It's a push-button start. I know how these cars start. So I just sit in the car and pop the button and it starts up. It's a V6 engine. Real nice car, beautiful, beautiful interior. It's a sedan. 8 seats. I mean, you don't have to have 8 seats. You can fold in half of the seats and have only 4 seats up if you like. Real good seats, almost like an aeroplane. Beautiful seats. And I said to my friend, this is a really nice car. You know what the price of that car is? The price of the car is around $90,000 over here. $90,000. I sat in a $90,000 car and I touched it, I felt it, I smelled it, and I heard the engine sound. This is what I mean by feel, touch, and smell. When you want something, this is what you need to do. You need to touch it, you need to feel it, you need to see it. Maybe you can't do that. Maybe you live in Alaska and you want to live in New York or somewhere and you can't leave Alaska, but you want an apartment in New York. So what do? You get onto the internet. Start looking at apartments, images of real estates, and seeing what kind of apartment you want. Work on it. Take some pictures. Put them up in a document or put them up on your wall. Then you can see it every day. And then that's what you imagine. Imagine every day until it becomes reality. That don't give up your affirmations or affirmations. Don't give them up. Continue with them. And don't get disheartened just because you don't see nothing. It doesn't mean they're not happening. It's happening. But it's behind the scenes. It's behind the scenes. Let me give you something to encourage you. Here is something that I will give you as an affirmation. Why do I feel everything in my life is always so perfect? Why do I feel everything in my life is always so perfect? That is a brilliant, brilliant affirmation. Here is something more for you that you can write in your list. Why manifesting my desires takes me no time at all? I manifest the same day. Why manifesting my desires takes me no time at all? I manifest the same day. Add to that, there is no lack. There is no loneliness. There is no negative. There is no death. And these are some brilliant, brilliant affirmations. And when you want a new car, you don't need to say, I have received such and such car. You become the car. If you wanted a Kia Carnival, maybe you want something else. Maybe you want a Tesla Roadster. Then you say, I am a Tesla Roadster. Or Why am I a Tesla Roadster? Why am I a Tesla Roadster? These both will work. I am a Tesla Roadster. Or whatever car, fill the blank. This is how you need to be. This is how you need to live. And this is how you need to operate. Because God is your friend. God is not your enemy. We, the Kohanim, are not your enemy. We are the teachers of the Torah. We are your friends. We are your encouragement. We will encourage you. We will teach you. But you need to be ready to receive it. Here is another one. Everything always works out for me and everyone concerned in miraculous ways. Everything always works out for me and everyone concerned in miraculous ways. God goes before us, making our way sure. Thank you, Father. Write these down and read them daily. And operate the way I told you. You will never fail. You will be a success upon success. Your children will tell the tales of your successes. And your grandchildren will tell the tales of your successes. Build a great life. And be the great man that you are, the great woman that you are. Live the life of a king. And don't be disheartened ever. Because everything will work out for your good. Because God is great. And we must always remember that. He is with us. He's not in a building. He's not in a church. He's not in a temple. God.
And God is definitely not in a decrepit wall or in some ancient Roman building where they acted all sorts of unrighteous acts in Israel. What today they describe as a Western Wall. God is not there. Now it is up to you whether you want to believe that myth or whether you want to believe the reality and the truth. Because people are flocking to Israel. They flock to Israel like God is there. But God is not there. God is with you. Right where you are. In America, in North America, in Great Britain, in the other nations of the East, God is right there in your midst. But are you ready to experience God? Or you still want to believe in mythologies? And legends are great. Lord of the Rings is a great legend. Great movies. Yep, I like them. Great movies. But at the same time, you want to do the things that will put you up, lift you up. And God is here to do just that. So with that, I'm going to end my lecture. I'm going to pass it to Rabbi Kefa. I want to thank you for your attention for this much time, because it was a slightly longer lecture than usual. And also next week, I'll definitely not be here next week. I'm attending a wedding, and I will be given a lecture over to Rabbi Kefa for October the 23rd for the next Sabbath. So you won't be seeing me, but you'll hear my lecture, because I will be busy in my brother-in-law's wedding. So have a great, great Sabbath and a great week ahead. Shabbat Shalom. Shalom, Shalom.
Todah Rabbi HaKohen. All right, let's see. Got the recording going. Todah Rabbi HaKohen for the great instruction and great history lesson. I tell you, Mishpacha, if you haven't heard HaKohen give these history lectures and lessons, my goodness, isn't it a blessing? For you newbies, like, I don't know, Brother Sharp, if you got to hear most of it. Brother Davis, was it really beneficial to you to really get the history of our people? I mean, this is our history. I mean, my goodness, man. And I'll be the first to say meow. I'll be the first, because when I study history as a tribal affiliate from the tribe of Judah, I truly see history for what it really is, and the Kohanim have always led the way. So if you consider yourself in any kind of battle, any kind of war, any kind of situation, this is what you must understand first, is that the Kohanim lead the way. They're going to give you the guidance and instruction and direction for you to be successful. How many of you understand if Israel doesn't go and put the Kohanim first in our battles, in our wars, that we'll never be successful? Shabbat Shalom, Nakshan. I'm on assignment, Mishpaha. I'm down here on assignment with my family in a coastal city, by the way. Just left a coastal city. I'm down here in Corpus Christi with the family. Nakshan is here. My wife is here. Pharaoh is over here lounging. We're just really enjoying this coastal city. We're going to stay here for about 5 days or so. But I'll be back for next Shabbat back at home base. But I tell you, here, I really have time to reflect and just to rejuvenate over here, just to reflect, because we're in a coastal city. Now I understand why our real estate in Israel is based upon being a coastal cities as well, right? How many of you know the geographic location of Israel? We're right on the coast, aren't we? Baruch Hashem. So this is why we have a high attachment to want to, with the coast and with water and with the ocean and with Mother Earth. So, Baruch Hashem, I give thanks for that. Shabbat Shalom, Sean. Yeah, Mama there. So I think it's very vital and important for us to understand that. And back to what Akoyin was saying in the history lesson, I tell you, it is so true, Mishpah. We must understand that. And this is why a lot of Israel today will really are having a hard time of it. It's because they don't go back to our ancient formula and our ancient way. For guidance, direction, instruction, for who teaches us, who gives us, guidance. And this is why a lot of us here were stumbling and fumbling and really was continuing to seek and search out, what is appropriate for us, as we continue to, petition the powers, petition to energies for guidance and direction on what we need to do and how we need to do it. A lot of us, like we talked about last Shabbat, you realize you can't do this on your own. Israel has never been alone to just do things by themselves. We have a structure and an order. It's a government that's put in place. Torah is a government. And as soon as you understand that, the better. And as soon as you comprehend it, even more better for you. But even as I notice down here, I tell you, there's some beautiful homes down here. We're right here on the coast. I'm looking outside right now. I'm right here on the coast. I'm right here. You see these big coastal homes and beautiful homes. And it's just beautiful. These beautiful big mansions right on the water, I tell you. And, a lot of these people down here, they have like a retirement-like mindset, to where, they just really are enjoying life and the benefits of life. And why shouldn't all Israel do the same thing? That's my question that I have. And I hear a lot of people say this. They say, God is great, brother. How many of you heard them say that? They'll say this, they tell you, God is great. God is great. But just like Akoyin was saying, what's more important, are you great? Yeah, God is great. God is good all the time. But what's more important is, are you great? Do you consider yourself greatness? Do you consider yourself children of kings? And, do you consider yourself great, you see? And then that's what's more important. The focus is, and it's a lot of it's due to the conditioning that we receive. But the focus is put on the wrong thing. You're focusing on God, and God's telling you to focus on yourself. That's subconscious, because that's where he resides. And he wants to see you be successful. He wants to see you be happy. He wants to see you be at peace with yourself, full of love and joy. That's what he wants for you. You don't have to tell people God is great. Everybody knows that. But is that greatness in you, So as we look at this parsha, the parsha Lech Lecha, I think it's very important for us to understand, get an understanding of Abraham. Because look at what we're learning about the characters, our patriarchs and matriarchs thus far. We've learned about Adam and his relationships, right? And then we go in and learn about who? We learn about Noah and his relationships, right? And now who we stepping in to learn about? We stepping in to learn about Abram and his relations. You see, life is about relationships. And like Akoyin was explaining as he gave the great history lesson, we have great patriarchs and matriarchs to look up to. But understanding this is that those great patriarchs and matriarchs, they made mistakes as well. And what? They survived through them. And what? They overcame their mistakes. They didn't sit here and just, mumble and fumble over their mistakes, that they cannot be successful, they can't do anything right. Oh, I made this mistake, so I'm going to give up. They never had a give up type attitude. even though they did make mistakes. They didn't get everything right. I mean, come on, that's part of being humans. But many times we focus too much on trying to be quote unquote perfect. And then we use that quote unquote perfect thing to, to focus on all the negativities and all the failures that we have in our life instead of looking at all the great and marvelous things that are occurring around you and to you daily and giving thanks for those things instead of focusing on all the negativity and all your past and all the things that happened to you in the past to prevent you from moving forward in the future. You need to stop that. And we need to just keep it moving forward in our forward thinking of being positive. And I'm telling you, Torah's going to teach us something great here today, this day. So in this coastal city that I'm in, down here in Corpus Christi, I'll tell you this as well. I was just really, really focused on, okay, wow, this is, Israel has water, water as a border as well. And it really just resonated with me on, who we are as a people and our real estate that we've inherited. How many of you understand you're real estate owners? Put up a capital R if you realize you're a real estate owner. You're like, well, Rabbi Kefa, I don't own nothing. You see, with that kind of negative attitude, you'll never own nothing. And you'll never see the road for the trees because you don't even understand that you already are a real estate owner. You own real estate. And look at it this way. The powers of Israel, the greatest gift that he gave his children was what? To inherit was what? Real estate, land. What does that tell you? What does that tell you, Mishpachah? Think about that for a minute. What does that tell you? He didn't give us all cars, did he? He didn't give us for inheritance. He didn't give us all camels and mules and all this other stuff. Huh? You play your car, brum, brum, brum. What did he give us? He gave us real estate. He gave us land, something tangible, something that doesn't depreciate but appreciates, Baruch Hashem, because that's who we are. We are appreciating type people. We appreciate. We don't depreciate. Right, Bishaw? Baruch Hashem. Bertha Shaw says, Rabbi, I missed the part of the lecture. Can I order it? No, you don't have to order. You can just go to Sim Out. I'll type this in. SIMATLALT. You go to Sim Out on YouTube, and you'll find the recordings there. All of our lectures are recorded and put on YouTube, so you can listen to them there. You may have to wait a little bit of time, but they'll be there. They'll be there. You can listen in, so don't worry. You haven't missed anything. They'll be there, and they're archived there, so people, generations and generations can listen to them. And so, Baruch Hashem, they can hear our Kohen speak and teach us our true history and our true heritage. And that's one of the benefits of the Abrahamic-Faith Bible, the Hidden Truth We Break Scrolls. If you don't have them, get them, because it really breaks down the facts on the ground about history. Everybody says they has the facts, but they run with their truths, but what are the facts? And the facts are just, really shown out with the Abrahamic-Faith Bible. So we go back to the relationship points of view. And you see, this is what it is. You look at Adam, look at Adam. We look at Noah, and now we're looking at Abram. And it's all about relations. So one of the questions that came to my mind today, as I look at the diversity of people down here in this coastal city in Corpus Christi, such a diversity of people. I sit here and look at all these people, and the question that I ask myself first is this. First, let's get into reading. Let's look at Bereshit. Let's look at Genesis chapter 12, starting at verse 1. And I read from the Abrahamic-Faith Bible, the Hidden Truth We Break Scrolls. And now Yahweh had said to Abram, get out of your country, from your native country, from your offspring, to a land that I will show you. Look at verse 2. And I will make you a strong and mighty nation. I will make you a benefit to others and make your name great. And you shall be an increase to all who embrace you. Look at verse 3. And I will bless those who come to bless you, and I will curse them who despise you and sees you as worthless. And in you, all the mishpahot, all the families of the earth will be engrafted, shall be engrafted, Baruch Hashem. And that brought me to this question today. And it's a question that you may have asked yourself. Who is nation Abram today? I mean, think about this for a minute. Who is nation Abram today? You ever thought about that? Can you look at a person and say, oh, you're of the nation of Abram? Like we read earlier in Genesis 12 and 2. And I will make you a strong and mighty nation. Today in 2021, how do we discern, how do we decipher Who is nation Abram today? Can anybody tell me? Anybody have any thoughts on that? Anybody have any opinions on that? I mean, how do we tell? You know, I look at all of this diversity of people down here on the beach, you know, soaking up some sun and getting some waves and surfing and sailing and all this other great and groovy things that they do down here, these gnarly things that they do down here. And you have to say, well, where is the nation of Abram today? Shane Yah Shabbat Shalom, he says the characteristics. Anybody else? I mean, how do we know nation? Now, if you want to know, let me give you a clue. We're told right here in our Torah. Our Torah tells us right here. He tells us right here. Look at Genesis chapter 12 and 2 again. We're told right here in the Torah. Right before, we're told. Listen what it says there. He says, I will make you a strong and mighty nation. I will make you a benefit to others. Characteristic number one, being a benefit to others. Now, this will probably take out a lot of people on YouTube as you listen to them talk on YouTube and they call themselves under the umbrella of the Torah, a nation of Abraham, descendants of Abraham. Are you a benefit to others? Wouldn't that be that's a great eliminator for us students of human nature, isn't it? It's a great eliminator because, you know, all these people talking about, oh, you white devils. Oh, eliminated. Oh, shouting down women and calling women all kind of obscenities outside of their name. Oh, you eliminated because you're not being a benefit to others. Israel is going to be a benefit to other people, to others. It didn't say, oh, to other Jews. It did to others, to everybody. You know, you're going to be just right and fair to everybody. You're going to be beneficial to everybody. You're going to be a benefit to others. Then it goes on to say, I will make your name great. Baruch Hashem. You are great. Your name is great. You want to sit here and talk about, oh, God is great. What is the Torah just telling us right here? You're great. Your name is great. I want you to say that to yourself right now. My name is great. I am greatness. Oh, brother, God is great. God is good. Let us thank him for our food. Amen. No, you're great. You're good. You're marvelous. You're a miracle worker. Baruch Hashem. See, these are the things that's important for us to really understand. Human nature, first we must begin to understand ourselves and who we really are. And really infuse and empower ourselves. Just like the title of this room. And this Power Talk for Empower Yourself. The Kohen named this room Empower Yourself. And you say, well, we need to empower God. No, we don't. You need to empower yourself because when you empower yourself, you are empowering the God that's in you. Baruch Hashem. The powers that's in you. Baruch Hashem. Do you get it? I mean, once you get it, you got it, and it's great. Because then you can really move on with life, and you're not worried about the hiccups in the road that come, because they're going to come. You should anticipate hiccups. Because that's part of life. You know, you're going to have the good with the bad, the happy with the sad. I mean, come on. You know, the yin with the yang. But, the question is, how are you going to deal with it? How are you going to go through those times? Our forefathers made mistakes. Our foremothers made mistakes. So, are we privy to make mistakes as well? We absolutely are. We've been given leverage and leeway for to make mistakes. That doesn't make us mistake-proof. You know what I mean? So let's not focus on that. Let's continue to focus on what's important for us to bring us back to those default settings of peace, love, joy, happiness. Baruch Hashem. That's what we desire. That's what all humanity desires. So your name is great. And you shall be an increase to all those who embrace you. Those who embrace you. You know, the Torah didn't say you have to go out and embrace people. No, that you learn from the Torah. Torah's teaching us here. We don't have to go out and embrace people, Mishpah. People will embrace us. Why? It's because, like Shane Yah talked about, because of our particular character traits, our characteristics. Man, I just like you. I just like talking to you. I feel like I can open up to you. You see what I mean? So people go and embrace us. We don't have to go out embracing people. You just walk your way. Let your walk do your talk. You walk your way of life. And those that will accept you will accept you. But again, you see how even the Torah gives you the yin with the yang. The good with the bad. Because then it goes on to say, what? Look at verse 3 of Genesis chapter 12. And I will bless those who come to bless you, and I will curse those who despise you and seize you as worthless. As anybody in your life ever saw you as worthless or even told you you worthless? Man, I hear it all the time in the HEB, in the grocery store. Oh, little Johnny, you worthless. You just like your father. He was nothing and you gonna be nothing. And they infusing this in children at a young age. Anybody ever heard that, or anybody or ever a witness to that very point of somebody telling you you worthless, you nothing, you never gonna be nothing? It's conditioned in a lot of these nations to put us down. Let me tell you, you may not, it's real subtle how they do it though. Let me tell you, this is one way they do it. Oh, the color of your skin. Oh, black is inferior. Anybody ever had that teaching before? Oh, if you black, that means you inferior and you curse. You're a cursed people. You're inferior. You're inferior race. So the Creator made you dark because you come from hell. Anybody ever heard that before? Believe me, they teaching that same crap. The whiter you are, oh, you white, you pure. You so pure and you white. Man, I'm telling you, my wife is Chinese from China. Man, most of the people over there yellow. But the women over there, they want to, they're painting their face white. They're using all these kind of chemicals to make their face white because the men kind of favor white over yellow. So the women are actually painting, bleaching their face white. Any of you heard that story before? It's true. The women in China, they don't like their yellow skin. So what are they doing? They're bleaching their skin to be white. Because they want to be white. Because they think white is superior to all race. But do you see how they'll go in and do this? And we must guard our families and guard our children and teach them properly. That being a person of color is not a curse. It's actually a benefit. Baruch Hashem. And it's actually an identifier of who you really are. I tell you, Nakshan is down here. And, he was he was, kind of favored his mother with the skin tone until that melanin kicked in when he got in that beach water. I tell you, Nakshan looks just like me now. Nakshan's got his, caramel color now, baby. After rolling in that beach water for a couple of hours. You know what I mean? He's got his melanin kicked in now, Baruch Hashem. So again, it's very, very important that we understand that. Brother Davis is saying, get HaKohen's book, Sefer HaYasher family. The book gives a good breakdown of our history and the characteristics of the patriarchal Abraham. Oh, indeed it does. That's another one to add in your libraries as well. I mean, the true history, the factual history on the ground, you're going to get it from the Kohen in the gate. And that's where it stops. So let me save you a lot of money. I mean, you can go out there and purchase all these other books from all these so-called, from the Gentiles out there. You can purchase the books on dog training. But again, you're not going to get the facts on the ground, about the Hebrews and how to fly like an eagle. You're only going to get that from the Kohanim. And that's how we fly. We fly high. We don't need books on dog training. Leave the dogs to their books and their training habits. But no, we need to get, and I say that with all respect, why are you going to go, purchase all these Gentile books? Been there, done that, have that. You know what I mean? But again, they just, they're just collecting dust. After meeting HaKohen, which I had already met HaKohen before, but I purchased these other books to kind of get a better understanding. You know what I mean? From the Gentile point of view, because we are students of human nature. So you have to understand them. So I see why HaKohen instructed me to purchase these books. And I don't regret at all purchasing those books because it really gives me a higher appreciation for the Kohen in the gate. Because they just have it totally all wrong. If you read the King James Version of the Bible and compared that with the Hidden Truth We Break Scrolls of the Abrahamic-Faith Bible, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? It's like night and day. They just have it all kind of ass backwards, you know what I mean? But I anticipated that, and I anticipate that because why? They don't have the understanding. They, in all due respect, they're just ignorant to our way of life and our way of living, and our heritage, and our history, for that matter. You know what I mean? And that's just what it is, right, Nakshan? That's just what it is. And notice that in Genesis chapter 12, verse 3, I will bless those who come to bless you, and I will curse him who despises you, see you as worthless. Okay, well then, why are all these other groups out there, so-called, descendants of Abram, nation of Abram, why are they saying pick up arms? If you notice there's a lot of I will going on. I will, from the creator of all things. I will. Not we have to do it. We have to manifest it. It's not none of that. It's the I will. Who is the I will? It's not me doing anything. It's the powers that I serve that handles the business for me. Why are we out here trying to handle our own business? And a lot of folks that waste a lot of energy on doing that very same thing. Oh, I'm going to get back at him. I'm going to get him. You don't have to do anything. You have to live your life. If people don't respect you and see you as worthless, then leave them alone. Let the God of Abraham handle it. Let the God of Abraham handle that particular kind of situation. You have more important fish to fry, right? Leave the little minnows, leave them alone. You know what I mean? You're looking at whales, Baruch Hashem. I like that because, you know, I like to watch those ocean movies, Ocean 12, Ocean 11, you know, and, you know, when you go to these hotels and you just loaded with money, that's the hotel people there, that's what they call you. They call you a whale. They say, oh, we got a whale coming in. We got a whale coming in. I mean, he has a lot of money and he don't mind dishing it out. So you're whales, Mishpachah. You're not little minnows. You're not these little tadpoles. You know what I mean? You're bigger than that, and see yourself as bigger than that. You're bigger. You're greater. You know, you're the greatest. You see all these things that other people have, you can have them too if you desire them. You can have them. But you got to rise up. You got to rise up and take your place. We have to rise up and take our place. We don't have to settle for second. We first. Why we want to be second? You don't have to settle. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. It goes on to say there, and at the end of verse 3 of Genesis chapter 12, goes on to say there that, and in you all the mishpachot, all the families of the earth will be engrafted. You see, this comes to my question, because I'm like, man, how can you tell who's nation of Abram today? How can you tell? Because we've been engrafted. I mean, you know, and that's one of the benefits of the exile, the dispersion, is because we've been engrafted into all these nations out here, these Gentile nations. We've been engrafted into these nations. There's been a lot of mixing going on. A lot of you, if you even done any of these DNA, you know, family, find your family and blah, blah, blah tests, you'll understand that there's a lot of mix in your bloodline, right? How many of you even done any of those, like the ancestry, blah, blah, blah? Anybody done that? Anybody in the room? Okay, Atara, can you be a witness to us? What was there a lot of mixing in your bloodline? Like different? Was there a lot of mixing? Were you like all over the place? Like you got a little bit of this, got a little bit of that, got a little bit of this, that, the other, and the third. And it happens why? It's because we've been engrafted into these nations. Not as a curse, Mishpachah, but truly as a blessing. That's why. As a blessing. Atar says yes as far as China. And, you know, I wouldn't doubt that. They're totally spot on. We've been engrafted. We have definitely been engrafted into these nations. And that's for a great thing. For a great thing. Not as a curse, Mishpachah. Don't ever see it that way. So, who is nation Abram today? Those, in my opinion, I wrote it this way, those who define the name. And just like Chanya said, those who have the characteristics, those who define the name. Well, do you have a spirit of want to be a benefit to other people? I mean, that's how you're going to find it. How Queen says he sees this all over the East. I see it in China as well. My goodness. I mean, these people, this may be the last meal that they have in their house, but yet they're going to serve you, you know, the best of the best that they have. And they're going to give you the last bit of rice that they have, you know, because you're a guest. And they say, be my guest. It's because, you know, they see and they want to be a benefit to you. They want to be beneficial to you. And they want to embrace you. You see what I mean? Not only do you want to be embraced, but you want to be, how many of you are really, you're huggers, you touchy-feely kind of people? That's like part of your nature. You're like, yeah, I like to shake hands. I like touchy-feely. Anybody like that? You like to give hugs. You're like always. This has been part of your character. Like you've always been like that. You know, you like touching. Nobody in this room? Wow, amazing. Or you like to be touchy-feely. You know, you just like to hug people. You like to, you know, really make contact. You know, and that's important. Tar says, I like hugs. Brother David says, I'm down. Hadassah, I'm down as well. That's a part of your character. That's your character makeup. That's your character build. I find it kind of strange to associate with people in this COVID environment where, people kind of standoffish, don't want to touch you. I do a little fist pump now. I give them a little fist pump. They'll put their fist out there. Here we give hugs, shake hands all the time with men. Oh, yeah, indeed, I bet. I imagine that's how it is over there in the East. That's big over there in the East. And I showed Brother Davis when I met him at the Starbucks how the Hebrews, how we shake hands. Boy, he really liked that. He liked that a lot. And so we're social creatures, and we like to be embraced. I mean, that's a characteristic. Now, you don't like to be embraced, and it's, maybe you don't have the characteristics of Nation Abram. You don't touch me. I know people like that. Don't touch me. Keep your hands off me. Don't touch me. Now, just heads up, men in the room, out of respect for another man's wife, you never touch another man's wife. Kohen mentioned that as well. He even went even further. He said in the East, you heard last Shabbat in his lecture? He said in the East, if a man is looking at another man's wife, that's very offensive. They take that as very, very offensive. Don't be staring at her, because she look good. That's another man's wife. Don't uncover that man's nakedness. You don't want to be doing that. That's not your place. So it's even more. And then you go over there to China. You try to look at a woman, they looking down. They so shy, they look down. Shane, y'all tell you, they won't look you in the face. They look down. They look down. They look anywhere besides looking at you. They won't look at you. Try to have a conversation with them, and they looking at the floor, or they looking at the sky somewhere. You're like, dang, where's the eye contact here? You know what I mean? So you're running into these things. So you see these nuances all over the world, these nations, especially if you do any kind of traveling. You'll see the different nuances of how the characteristics of how people get on. And I tell you, embracing is big in the East. They like to embrace. They really do like to embrace, except when you get over there towards the Orient. The Japanese, they're more in this bowing stuff. The Chinese, not so much the embracing side. They acknowledge each other, but without touching so much. But so they're very, 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 very interesting to look at as you study human nature. So, who is the nation of Abram today? Those who define the name. Now let's keep going. Let's keep reading. I find this very interesting. I'm not going to keep you long today. I'm with the family vacation here, so I won't keep you long today. But we're gonna keep it moving because there's a great lesson here I want you to see. Look at Genesis chapter 12, verse 4. So Abram departed as Yahweh spoke to him, and Lot went with him, and Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. 75 years old, that's a young whippersnapper. That 75, right, is like 35, maybe, something like that. Young whippersnapper. Abram was a young whippersnapper at this time. And one of the characteristics you notice about Abram is that he never questioned. He just did. Pay attention to that. It's one of the greatest characteristics I see in Abram, that he never questioned. He just did. He followed through. And you're going to see this. Torah is going to break this down in a minute. Look at verse 4 of Genesis chapter 12. And Abram took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their possessions that they had gathered, and the people whom they had acquired in Haran. Note that Abram had begun to acquire. People began to embrace Abram in Haran. People began to embrace him. They liked him. They wanted to follow him. They wanted to be a part of his entourage. They embraced him. And so those that embraced him went. Same way with Yeshua ben Joseph, Jesus of Nazareth. Again, people just embraced him and they followed him wherever he went, to where he had to take care of them. Look, we gotta take these fish and these loaves of bread and make something happen to feed these people. Because people just kept following him. Note that. Now, the only people Yeshua ben Joseph told to follow him was his students. He said, come follow me. Come follow me. And if they did, they did. And if they didn't, they did. But they had a choice. He said, come follow me. You gonna go with him? That's what I'm saying. That's how I went down. That's how I went down at the Kefa ben Yabed. Kohen came to my house. He said, hey, Kefa, you're a rabbi. I said, okay. It's the same message. Like, come follow me. He said, Kefa, you're a rabbi. I said, okay, Kohen, come follow me. That's either you did or you didn't. And so this is a great bit of understanding that Hakohen taught me is this. He said, if you notice in our history that the students don't pick the teacher, but the teacher picks the students. Think about that. The teacher picks the student. Not the student picking the teacher. Oh, I want you to be my teacher. No, you have to ask that teacher if he wants you as a student. Wow, that's heavy, isn't it? That's heavy. That stuck with me. That still stays with me. It still stays with me. I think that's important to understand. It's just vice versa. I tell you, our history is so rich when you're being taught it properly. And it's amazing. It's amazing. It is amazing. So, he's got his group. Everybody went with him, those that he acquired in Haran, and they departed to go to the land of Canaan. Now, they're going to Canaan. I want you to pay very close attention to this. It's going to mesh with what Hakohen was telling you about his Kia experience. And so they departed to go to Canaan. And so they came to the land of Canaan. Now they're in Canaan. Look at verse 6. And Abram passed through the land to the place of Shechem. So they're in Canaan and they're passing through the land. They're walking through it, right? As far as the terebinth tree of Moreh. Okay, here's where you need to pay attention. Read this with me. Look what it says there in Genesis chapter 12, verse 6. And the Canaani were then in the land. And the Canaani were then in the land. Now the Canaani are there. The Canaanites, they're there. They're in the land. But yet, Abram and his entourage, they're walking the land like they own it. Pay very close attention to this. And see, why would Torah put this particular verse in there? And the Canaani were then in the land. You see, because, okay, let's keep reading. Let's keep reading. Look at verse 7. Then Yahweh appeared to Abram and said, to your descendants I will give this land. And there he built an altar to Yahweh who had appeared to him. Wow. Are you not seeing what's going on here? The Canaani were in the land. But yet, here we see Yahweh, the God of Abram, telling him, look, to you and your descendants, I'm going to give this land. But is Abram saying, well, wait, how are you going to give me this land, Yahweh, when there's people already here? You see what I mean? Wait, how are you going to go get in that car when you don't even own that car yet, and you saying that that's your car? How many of you with me now? You see how the Torah's teaching us? You see how the Most High is teaching Abram as well? Are you with me, Miss Baha? To see things not though as they are, but as they are. As you want them to be, right, Oliver? You get it, Oliver? You see? But again, the Canaani were in the land. Well, why isn't Abram saying, wait a minute, Most High, the God in whom I serve, why are you telling me I'm going to have this land when I don't have the land and there's people already in this land? And even more important, how are you going to get rid of these people that's already here? I mean, you see how you can go down that rabbit hole? But what did Abram do? His characteristic was just to do. Okay, you say it's going to be, I'm going to be able to alter and give thanks for that. I'm not going to concern myself. I'm not going to worry myself with the Canaani that's already here. And I'm keeping my mouth shut. I'm not going to go around and tell them, look, man, I'm finna own all this. Think about this. There are people already there. Do you see the kind of mindset that we need to have, Mishpah? You got to internalize it. It's already yours, even though there's people already. Same way with a house. Oh, you want that house? Man, I've seen some beautiful homes over here, right here on the coast. Right, perfect location for a little beach home, little getaway for the summer. But there's already somebody occupying it. So what? That's my house. Do you get it? That I'm gonna own that house. That is my house. But somebody's already living there, Rabbi Kefa. So what? They're not gonna be living there when I'm in it. You know what I mean? You see? Do you get it, Mishpah? Do you get it? So Abram is already he's being taught by thought. Yeah, you're going to own all this. This is all your land. You see all this land that you're walking on right here? This is all yours. To your descendants, I will give this land. In Genesis chapter 12, verse 7. Baruch Hashem. But Yahweh, what about blah, blah, blah? But how it's going to happen? But these people are already there. What are we going to do? These people have been here for years. That's mind my business. That's none of my business. It's not my concern. Yo, you want that car? But that car is at the dealership. Where am I getting the money? You see, You're worried about the wrong thing. You see? Focus. Be like Abram. Nation of Abram. Be like Abram. Okay? Give thanks for it. Walk through it. That's what Abram did. That's what he did, right? Pass through the land. There in verse 6 of Genesis 12. And Abram passed through the land to the place of Shechem. Pass through the land. Baruch Hashem. Isn't that beautiful, Mishpah? Even Abram is being taught. Manifestation. Visualization. Ownership. What do you want? What do you desire? What's promised to me? And it's yours. What do you want? What's promised to you? And it's yours. Make it yours. It is yours. Don't concern yourself with, well, somebody's already there. Somebody living in that house. Somebody already driving that car. You know what I mean? This is what we need to concern ourselves with. Is what? Making it yours. Look at verse 8 of Genesis chapter 12. And he moved there to the mountain east of Bethel, and he pitched her tent with Bethel in the west and Ai in the east. There he built an altar to Yahweh and called on the name of Yahweh. Note, every time something's going on to where Abram it wants to give thanks, is giving praise, he's building an altar every single time. And he's giving esteem to the Most High for already giving him what he has and promises, and for the promises that he has. Even though, with his physical eye, he may not see it because, the Canaani are there. But he understands, and he believes, and he trusts. He has a belief, he has that feeling, and he trusts in the Most High. I mean, who's going to pack up all their things and just leave? Leave their family, leave all their familiar surroundings, and just go to a foreign land? Who's going to just do that? What kind of character, right, Shane, y'all? What kind of character do you need to have to do something like that? And not question, but just go and you follow through. Baruch Hashem. That's who we are, descendants of. People that follow through. You don't have to worry about asking all these freaking questions. It is what it is. It is what it is. It will be what it is. It is. Because I am. And when all those questions start to come your way, you say, why? Because I am. Because I am. Because I am. Baruch Hashem. Beautiful, isn't it? Our way of life is so beautiful. Look at verse 9 of Genesis chapter 12. So Abram journeyed, going on still towards the south. Look at verse 10. Now there was a famine in the land. Now these famines seems to pop up quite frequently. But this is what I want you to learn about this famine, and this is what we can learn. We can peel away the onion and learn about a famine in the land. There's a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Mitzrayim, to Egypt, to dwell there, for the famine was severe in the land. And I wrote this down, and I think this may be pertinent to someone else besides myself. It will help you. Famine is not favorable conditions. How many of you agree with that statement? If there's a famine, that's not a favorable condition. How many of you agree with that? If there's a famine going on, that's not a favorable condition. Now let me ask yourself this question for those of you who responded. To top of your responses. How many of you want to live in favorable conditions? Anybody? How many of you say, look, Rabbi, I want to live in favorable conditions? How many of you want to live in favorable conditions? You say, yeah. I mean, come on, that makes sense. I mean, I want to live in favorable conditions. Nobody wants to live in a famine, right? But yet some people are living in a famine. Let me tell you the secret why they're still living in a famine. And learn from Abram, because what did Abram do? So Abram went down to Mitzrayim, to Egypt. Egypt, the superpower that it was even back then. Superpower. A land that was not famined. You see, so Abram moved to a favorable condition. What is Abram teaching us today? What is the Torah teaching us today? If we're in an unfavorable condition, if we're in a famine, it doesn't have to be a famine. We're saying, Rabbi, I'm not in a famine. I have food in the refrigerator. It don't have to be a food famine. It can be an employment famine. It can be a relationship famine. It can be an economic famine. How many of you with me, Mishpah? So if you're living in a famine in unfavorable conditions, what do we learn from Abram? Is that we need to pack up and move to favorable conditions. We need to do the same. We need to move to favorable conditions where there is employment, where there is opportunity, where there is abundance, where there is a lot of food. You see? And I tell you, one of the greatest things and one of the greatest blessings of this COVID, I don't know if you noticed this, one of the greatest blessings of this COVID is that people realize is that they were living in places of famine. And guess what people did? A lot of people here in America packed up and they moved to favorable conditions. How many of you seen that here in North America? Put up a capital F if you say, Rabbi, I know exactly what you're talking about. Because there's a lot of people now living down south that weren't living here before this COVID kicked off. There's a lot of people moving to Florida. There's a lot of people, not only people, but companies, Mishpachah, that said, oh, these conditions are not favorable. When the times get rough, I can't get on with my company, with my family, so I'm going to pack up and move to more favorable conditions. Do you not see it? I see it, Mishpachah. Oliver, is it like that in France as well? What about Lion King, Lion Princess? Is it like that in the UK where people relocated because of the famine? There was a shift of people, migration of people moving from one locality to another locality. All of us say the same thing in France. So this is a universal thing. This is not a, North American thing going on here. And shall I say, if that example didn't get you, what about the one of all these people moving from South America and migrating to North America? With all these things going on, do you not see that migration of people moving from South America, busting down the fence, trying to get into to South Texas and the border states down here in America to move to what? More favorable conditions. Can you blame them? To move to more favorable conditions. So do you see this pattern? We can learn from this from Abram. Hey, listen. Well, Abram didn't say, well, Most High, Egypt that's a heathen nation. A bunch of dogs living over there that want to worship all these different gods. You see what happens? You see, it wasn't that kind of thought process. Because Abram was not judgmental. Abram was like, look, let me go to a place that's going to be more favorable for me and my family and my entourage. Which I'm sure Abram called all those people his family. If they embraced Abram, they became his family, right? He wasn't sitting there saying, okay, you family, but you entourage. And you family, but you entourage. No, they're all his family. So Abram wanted to take care of his family. So where's the best place, the most opportunistic place I can go to take care of my family and find favorable conditions? Egypt, the pinnacle, the superpower. And that's where he went. Can we learn from this? What is Torah trying to teach us here? You need to move to more favorable conditions. Listen, this coastal city, and I'm pretty sure Hakohen would say the same thing about Karachi, having experienced there in Karachi. Karachi, a beautiful, Corpus Christi, beautiful, coastal city, but I don't want to live here, 365 days out of the year. I'll set up a little base here, do some, maybe rent out a few homes down here, but I'm not here to, no, I love San Antonio. So again, just like Abram journeyed, we can journey to an established base in different locations. We don't have to just stay in one place. Get out of that one place mindset. And a lot of folks haven't done that yet. And they wonder why they can't manifest anything. Because where you're living is a famine, man. And you got to pick up and move to more favorable conditions. That's going to be beneficial for you and your family. How many of you are with me? You're like, Rabbi Kefa, I totally get it. I totally get it. So again, I love Corpus Christi. I come down here and visit for a spell, but then I'm packing up the family. We going back to, beloved San Antonio, or we going back to beloved China in Baruch Hashem. Yichong, Qingdao, Baruch Hashem. Favorable conditions for me and my family. I'm going to always be a sojourner. That's who I am. So then that means I need to be journeying, right? How many of you in the journeymen and journeywomen in this room? Maybe your journey is not across many rivers. Your journey could be from one city to another city, one state to the next state, one neighborhood to another neighborhood. You can journey out to find more favorable conditions. That's more opportunistic for you and your family. An environment to where you can do what? You can manifest. you can benefit. You see? That's important to understand. And I'm going to take you to the relevance and importance of what I just said as I get ready to close, because I need for you to understand this. And it has to do with Lot has to go. Lot has to go. That's what I kind of co-titled this little section. Lot has got to go. You see? And in the Abrahamic-Faith Bible, it says it this way. And what is it? Let me find it there. That's, excuse the vacuum cleaner, that's housekeeping. But you look at Genesis chapter 13. Look at verse 14. And Yahweh said to Abram, after Lot had separated with him. You see, sometimes you got to separate yourself from the low-hanging fruit that's sour. You know what I mean? You have to separate yourself from that so that you can begin to manifest at a faster speed and rate. And that, you know, your road or your imagination is not cloudy, but it's clear. You see? And Torah says it explains it this way in chapter 14 of chapter 13 of verse 14. And Yahweh said to Abram of Bereshit of Genesis, after Lot had separated from him, lift your eyes now. You see, now Abram can see more clearer because he's not dealing with the controversy over here with Lot. And Lot, you know, Lot is just like totally not all there. You know what I mean? And it's a hindrance. So you got to remove that. You got to separate yourself from that so that you can focus on what's really important. So you can lift up your eyes. Baruch Hashem. Lift up your eyes and look from the place where you are, northward, southward, eastward, and westward. For all the land which you see, I will give you and your descendants forever. And I will make your descendants as the dust of the earth. So if a man could number the dust of the earth, then your descendants also could be numbered. Isn't that heavy? I read that verse, and then I went and walked on the beach. And then I was playing in the sand with Nakshan. I tell you, beautiful memories we making down here with my son. His first experience with beach water. And then, you know, since COVID, you know, we really didn't go out anywhere, but we out now. But, you know, he saw the beach water, in the water, the waves. He just loved it all. Just soaking it up. But I'm looking at the sand, and I'm feeling that sand. I'm like, man, the descendants of Abram are like the dust of the earth. Like all these sands. If I could number all these sands on this beach, and this is just one beach, and so are the descendants of Abram. I said, my goodness, Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. Now, there's a lot of descendants of Abram they don't know it. And so this is why they can't conform, because they don't have the characteristics of Abram right now. They conform to the nations, you see, and these nations that they've been dispersed in and scattered in. The dust of the earth, then shall your descendants be. Now get this. This is the important part. This is so important. Look what Torah says to Abram. Arise, walk in the land through its length and its width, for I give it to you. You see, this is what you must do. You must arise, walk in the land, get in the car, smell the leather, you know, go to the house, touch the house, touch the bricks, kick the tires. You see what I mean? You got to arise and walk in the land, walk in the house, walk in the relationship, walk in whatever you're walking in, whatever you desire for yourself. You got to arise and do that. That's your consideration and that's your concern. The concern is not how or when. When should matter. See, a lot of folks are failing with the affirming and affirmation because why? They put a time stamp on it. Okay, well, if it don't happen then, that's irrelevant. It doesn't matter, right? Just arise and walk in the land. Walk in the car. Drive the car. Walk in the house. You know, touch the walls, kick the tires, get on the plane. Look at pictures of that island you want to be on. Look at pictures of that house. Begin to be consumed with those things instead of consumed with, well, how it's going to happen? Who's going to make it happen? How is all that money going to go in my bank account? The money's already in your bank account. Walk in it. Arise. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. And then typical Abram, what does he do? After he hears this, all these things is going to be given to him. What does he do? Abram turns right around and gives back. He gives thanks. And look at verse 18. I'm going to go close with that. And then Abram moved his tent and went and dwelt by the terebinth Exum, by the trees of Mermi, which is in Hebron, which I did go there. And I couldn't mention our journey. We did a lot of car travels. I tell you, I couldn't be a witness to this. Half the time I was snoring away. I was sleeping, man. I was in there catching some Z's. I don't know if I couldn't even remember. Yeah, I was like sleeping a lot of those times. I couldn't even say, yeah, keep over here now. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. I was snoring half the time, like, oh, we there? Oh, okay, yeah, all right, great. Yeah, so yeah, in Hebron, in Hebron there, and built an altar there to Yahweh. So again, there goes Abram again, building more altars, giving thanks. Not saying, okay, all right, into my meditations, how is this going to happen? How is this going to be conceived? How am I going to birth this? I'm going to manifest and attract these things to me? How am I going to have that relationship with this money to bring it to me quicker and blah, blah, blah? No. Just complete trust and say, okay, it's going to happen. I'm going to give thanks. I'm going to rise and I'm going to walk in the land. I'm going to rise and I'm going to walk in the land. Do you get it? That's the motto right there. We learn from Abram. Nation of Abram. That's who we are. We people, we don't worry, we don't concern, we don't fret. We just move from strength to strength and strength to strength to strength. That's what we do. And we enjoy this life. I'm telling you, if you haven't got out and traveled, do that. Just get out and travel and see the different people and this beautiful earth. I tell you, we got sunny skies over here. I'm looking at the waves, man. They got a lot of wind out here though today, but still, just beautiful. This earth is so amazing and beautiful that we've been given dominion over, and we got to get out and experience it. We got to give for our families to show them that, we can do all these things, and we can do these things, and we can do it even better and greater than what we've seen done by these Gentile nations that we in. We can do and help these Gentile nations be great and mighty and strong, just like Cohen gave us in his history lesson that he gave us about the relevance of America coming in and really, putting the smackdown on these nations that were up to no good, these countries that had agendas that were not favorable to all people. Papa Dare, hey Papa Dare, okay, yeah, that were favorable to all people. As you can see, Nakshan is giving my exit. So I think it's important for us to understand that going forward. So let's do that, Mishpachah. Let's go out as nation Abram and represent by our characteristics and define our nation of Abram by what? Not so much what we say, but what we do, by our actions. That'll be our definition mark, our definition stamp mark on who we are as a people. So I love you and I leave you in the mighty hands of the Most High. I'm gonna turn it over to our Kohen for any questions, because I know please go back and listen to this lecture. Please go back and listen to it, because our Kohen gave a great history lesson that you will never hear anywhere else by anybody else, and that's for sure. So Shabbat Shalom and Shalom Shalom to all of you, Mishpachah. Okay.
Yes, Juda for that, Rabbi Kefa. Don't forget to send the lecture through, because I need your part of the lecture, because you are breaking in some parts. So I'll take the whole part from you and I'll be able to plug it into mine and join it together. So coming back to the point of Abraham, I only want to make one point today, no more than one, because I got calls coming in left, right, and center from all over the place whilst Rabbi Kefa was teaching. Here is my point, and I'm going to take you a little bit to the Hebrew, although it's not really relevant to say the Hebrew, but I'll say it just for the sake of it. Lech lecha me arzacha. This part, Lech lecha me arzacha umi moladcha. Now this part, this part is not translated correctly in many Bibles today, and I didn't want to get into the deeper translation into the Abrahamic-Faith Bible either, or the Hidden Truths of Great Scrolls, because, I had limited real estate. There's only so much a printer will print, and you can't have books that are, humongously thick, and nobody wants to print them, so there's no point. You then have to split it into volumes, and people don't like carrying volumes. They like to carry one book. So it's all these kind of logistic issues that caused me to take many pages out of that Bible. I had to remove commentary because it was too big. So I left it. I thought, you know what, I'll just put what's minimal and what's important, and I'll leave the rest for another time. Maybe when I teach, then I will be able to give it, or those that are under me will teach and give it properly, in a proper run over. Now the Hebrew over here does not say, as the most Bibles do. Most Bibles say, and I'm going to pick up the KJV, King James Version, most popular, or the NIV. And for the NIV, I'm going to have to go onto the internet and do a little NIV search and go pull up the Genesis 12 onto that one, and I can read you what the NIV says. And it says as follows. It says, the Lord has said to Abram, go from your country, your people. Okay, I just stop there. I just say go from your country, because we'll stop at the RSAHK, which is your country. Go from your country. Okay. Now this is the NIV, and the King James Version says of that particular issue. It says, now the Lord had said, and the bit I read, it simply says, get thee out of thy country. Okay. This is the King James Version of the Bible. Get thee out of thy country. And the NIV, as I gave you, it says, and I'll read it again, go from your country. Okay, it's translated slightly differently in a more modern kind of way, but go from your country and get thee out of your country. Okay, and the Jews say, now let me tell you what the modern Ashkenazi Jews today say. The modern Ashkenazim today, they say that it basically says to Abram in the noun, in the way the Hebrew is written, it says to Abraham to go for yourself. Okay, go for yourself from the land. Now that is absolutely, all three translations that I'm looking at and I'm giving you here, reading them from the actual scriptures, from the Bibles, different formats, none of them are actually accurate. Okay, none of them are accurate, and none of them are saying the right thing. Even in the Hidden Truths of Great Scrolls, I couldn't say exactly I wanted to, because nobody would understand what I wrote. They'd be like, what the heck is this? Because what does this mean? Because unless I put some commentary, a comment or a footnote, you will not get what I just said. So I had to refrain from editing, a lot of editing, just for that reason. So now I'm going to preface, and I'm going to fill that edit now, where I left it out in the Bible, and I'm going to fill it. And maybe in the future reference, I may have to put it back in, even if I just don't even put a footnote in it, for the sake of, brevity, and keep it in the Bible. So some future teacher will be able to reference it and make sense of it, but here is the meaning of it. It does not say go for yourself. It does not say go from the country. It does not say go to another country. I mean, those all imply, they're all implications of what God is saying. But what God is literally saying is what nobody's really told you to this day. And in 2021, 16th of October, at, my time in Pakistan is 8:48 p.m. Okay? And in America, New York time is 11:48. I'm going to tell you what it says today. And it says this: Abraham, or Abram, because God called him Abram before he called him Abraham. He said, Avram, go to yourself. Does anybody ever tell you that? No one told you that. And no one will tell you that unless they learn it from me. Go to yourself. Go to yourself. That's what it says over there. Go to yourself from your land. It says go to yourself from your land. So what is to myself? What does that mean, go to myself? What's God talking about? Somebody like, a simple man like Abraham, who's probably intelligent. He's got cattle. He knows how to farm. He's got a father who's in the military. He's a military commander, and he manages a temple. So he's obviously got, understanding of some priestly duties. and they manage all these deities, that the statues that the Indians worship today. And he's managing all of that. And Abraham says, what does go to yourself mean? Go to yourself means exactly what I told you earlier. God's connection with you is to your subconscious, not to some Western wall in Israel or somewhere else. Maybe Lourdes in France, or maybe Rome in Italy. Nowhere is God got a house today. God's house is into yourself, into you. Now, are you going to access God from within you? Or are you going to start traveling? Now, if you just want to go to Israel, if you wanted to go and see King David's tomb, of course, go visit Israel. If you want to see if you want to see Abraham's tomb, go visit Israel. It's there. Easy access for America or Europeans to get to Israel. Very easy access, no problem. You can go there. And I don't say otherwise. I don't tell you don't go. I say go look at all the history. But I tell you this, that God is not there. God has left the temple long ago. And so if you're going to search for God in some wall and put a little piece of note over there, and maybe you think God's going to listen to you, you're quite mistaken. And unfortunately, rabbis, they follow tradition, and they will not tell you otherwise. They will lead you into tradition, and tradition leads into destruction and death. And it does not bring any changes. No changes. No change means no Torah. It's just man's tradition. So if you want man's tradition, then you're welcome to do so. But go to yourself means that start accessing God from within. Start accessing God from within you. This is why I gave you some affirmations and various other intonations and incantations, if you want to call it. I gave you some of these things. Why? Because they are for your purpose, your benefit, your life. Because, hey, everybody in this life, they need prosperity. They need to live to be able to pay all their bills and have enough left over to enjoy their family life. Who doesn't? I mean, do you know anybody who doesn't want to have a great family life? I don't. I've seen people with terrible family life. In this country and abroad, in other countries, I've seen some terrible family life. Various reasons. And majority of the time in the West that I've seen terrible family life is not because of money, maybe other reasons. But in the East, 9 times out of 10, in fact, I'll even say 10 out of 10, it's because of money. Lack of money causes terrible family life. And I have seen different people here with different levels of, you might want to call it poverty, different levels of poverty and different levels of thinking. And even people with money, when I say money, there may be your typical middle class, people middle class, or I've been to people with high class, big money, deep pockets, big cars, big homes you've never, homes that you probably never see in America. I've seen those homes over here. They are very, there are people here very, very rich. I actually saw a plant. I call it a plant, but it was, basically it was a clothes factory. And clothes factory doesn't quite fit the bill because it didn't look like a factory. It looked like, my goodness, what do you call half a mile district? I don't know what to call it. It covered about half a mile. And it had all the shops in the front, banks, shops, stores, you name it, all the different stores, all rented. And behind it was the plant or the mill or whatever name you want to give it, clothes place. And it was all owned by one man who's definitely not in the book of the richest in the world. His name is not there. And I know his name, but his name is not there in any book or in any public library or in any, they give you the Forbes richest list. His name is not in the Forbes richest list, but this is the richest man that I saw in this country. That I saw his, again, I lack the name. I don't call it plant or call it a mill or whatever he wants to call it. But this man, that was one of them, by the way. That was one of them. He had a few of them. in the city. And my goodness, how large was that? And I was saying to my student, I said, this man has very deep pockets. And he said, this man has very deep pockets, and even he doesn't know how much wealth he has. He has so much wealth, and he, puts all this wealth, he uses some of this wealth for good, and he puts these big plants, big mills, and he employs a lot of people, and so on and so forth. And he said he does all of that, but, the man doesn't come into public. He doesn't show his face in public. He doesn't like to advertise to show who he is. He likes to keep private. And I reckon this is probably one of the richest men in the world. Lives right in this country where I am today. Probably richer than even Bill Gates. Bill Gates is probably not that rich as he is. But that's another story, because you've never seen it. I've seen it, so I know. I see what I see. So, this guy's probably got billions of dollars stashed into businesses all over different countries, and billions stashed, when I say stashed, I mean invested into property and mills and factories and oil and gas, you name it, is probably in it. But again, the man is very private, and I respect that. I highly respect that. He doesn't want to bring his public life out, and that's great. So my point is this, that you all want to prosper yourselves, and prosperity is Torah's middle name. Torah means prosperity. Torah doesn't mean to live a lackluster life, and a futile life, and a useless life. Because if you're living in futility, if you're unable to pay your bills or struggling, then you are not in Torah, Mr. Whoever you are, and Mrs. whoever you are, or Miss. You are not in Torah. You don't even know what Torah means. Torah means, for our forefathers, go look at our forefathers' model and example. Our forefathers were extremely prosperous people. Abraham, God doesn't detail his wealth, but he was a very wealthy man. Only a wealthy man can have 300 servants, spare servants, 300 spare servants to take. How many people do you know today that have 300 servants? Even the king of Saudi Arabia, the king of Saudi Arabia today, MBS is the prince who controls Saudi Arabia, but his father is the king, and even his father doesn't have 300 servants like that. He has a fleet of planes, and he has a fleet of servants, and they go with him wherever he goes, but he probably doesn't have the wealth that Abraham had. And I want you to look at that man's, it's on YouTube. You can go on YouTube and do a little search on King of Saudi Arabia, and they'll tell you what kind of, luxuries and how many servants he goes with. They'll tell you all of that. But my point is this, that even his 700 servants today will not compare to Abraham's 300, because Bible doesn't tell you how many servants Abraham had. It only tells you how many he took. It doesn't tell you how many he had in total. And so the Torah hides, when I say Torah hides information, why? Because the Torah is only illustrating a point. This is a very extremely prosperous man. And so if you are after him, if you are after Abraham, you are his son and daughter, and many of you probably rightly are sons and daughters of Abraham, then if you are still complaining about wealth, or moaning that, about rich people, why they are rich and you are not, then sure, then you're in the wrong place. You're in the wrong place. Torah is about living a great life, a prosperous life. Torah is not about, Scrooge life. If you're a Scrooge life, then you're not in Torah. You're in some sect of Christianity which believes into Scrooge life. This Scrooge idea, Christianity gave this idea. Yeah, you and your Jesus can have all you want. We don't need any of that. Thank you very much, but we don't need this. We don't need it, and we'll never receive it either. Yeah, take it all and leave. Take your Jesus and sell him out there somewhere, okay? Because we have the mighty God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and that's pretty enough for me. I don't know about anybody else, but it's pretty enough for me. I'm very happy with that mighty Elohim. Very happy with him. Baruch Hashem, Yahweh. And you can take your mythology and we can sell it to the children, we can sell it to the churches. Yeah, it's good enough for me. It's good enough for you, it's good enough for me. Yeah, go sell it to the churches. So this is my point, that religion has simply killed humanity. And if you look back at religion and go back and look at religion, and you will see how many murders, when I say murders, and I should say even wars, in which murders are committed as well. You know, they don't just kill people, they also murder people. You know, innocent people are killed and shot at point range, who probably did nothing wrong and probably just crossing the road or something, but they were in the way and they're shot. And that's classed as murder, by the way. That's not classed as war. So my point is this, that many nations in the past have a bloody history of murder and mayhem and death. And we want to be very careful of not going there. Because religion tends to go that way, by the way. Religion tends to go that way. You know, so-called holy wars. We're done with holy wars. So with that, I'm going to say this. The lecture started earlier today, and most of you probably missed most of it. So what I will do is, I've got it all recorded, and I'm going to wait for Rabbi Kefa's lecture part, and then I will take his and add mine, and I will post it onto the YouTube side, which is on youtube.com/SIMALT. That's where the lectures are posted every week, and that's where they're archived. And Toda for that, Rabbi Kefa. Yeah, I'll pick it up from the email and download it. So we'll have all of that set up for you. For those of you who missed it, I will encourage you all to listen to it more than once, because there's a lot in it. And some people say I speak fast. Maybe I do speak fast, but you know, I have to cover a lot of ground. So sometimes I have to speak fast and cover a lot of ground. And sometimes I do try to keep pace and not speak so fast, because there's a lot happening in the background that I'm not speaking about right now, because things are evolving very fast as we're going. Things are evolving, and my goodness, you know, you got to keep up with things. A lot is happening behind my back. When I say behind my back, there's a lot happening that I haven't told you over here. You know, you don't know how many people I have to see every day and guide. And there's a lot of people that I guide. And again, that's another thing, that, you know, there was a Muslim guy that a Muslim young man that I who visited me. I invited him to my home to give him some guidance and help and understanding into how to prosper his life, because he had all sorts of problems. Poor guy, you know, he had all sorts of issues with family, issues with the people, but you know, he's okay with his wife, but his other family issues with the other side, you know, his father's side, a lot of problems, and I'm helping him deal with all those issues. So, you know, I'm a brother, and I'm a father to many people over here. A father to many people over here, and you wouldn't even believe it. And you know, they love me. They love me. Period. The man said to me when I gave him some, you know, help in understanding the situation and trying to help him to make sense to how to resolve his problems. He said to me that you are my ideal. You know, I want to come under you as a student and learn from you, because your type of person is my ideal. You are my teacher. You know, he said to me, you are my teacher. Whatever you tell me to do, I will do it. Now, of course, I want to do it within the confines of the culture. You know, I don't want to drop him out of the culture. So everything has to be done within the confines of the culture and within the culture norms, so that, you know, other people's family life is not disturbed. We have to think a lot about different things. This is not Christianity where you tell somebody, hey, convert over, and then get beat up by his family and killed. That's Christianity. Oh, I'll die for Jesus. Yeah, I'll hold my cross. Yeah, go hold your cross. And they'll come and chop you up into pieces. This is the real East, by the way. Here people are killed, they're shot, and they're stabbed, and people don't care about it. Police even turn their face the other way like they didn't see nothing. People are very powerful. Some people are very powerful over here, more than others. And power, where there is power, their power rules, not law. So the only law over here is the dollars. The dollars meaning the money. Money is the law. If you have money, you are the law. So yeah, have enough of it. Have plenty of it. Have plenty of money to give your children a great life. And God's already with you. So what's there to lose? Exactly. God is with you, and God is willing to empower you. God is willing to prosper you. And who would say no to that? Yeah, those guys in the church, yeah, sure, they can say no to that. And I'm happy with that they said no, because we don't need that that bunch over there. They can keep their Jesus, and they can keep their t-shirts that Jesus saves. Because we are already redeemed. And if you're already redeemed, why would we be looking for salvation somewhere else? You don't need to. You're already redeemed. So be sure about it. Be absolutely certain that when you're already redeemed, you don't need to worry about finding salvation in different houses and different places. Like Rabbi Kefa talks about, that he went to, have 18 baptisms. Each church with a different baptism. Every time you join a new church, you get a new baptism. So unless you like, this bath, having a baptism, if you like this little bath and with all the people clapping, then sure. Yeah, I mean that might be the Guinness Book of Records. But I say no thanks. I don't like public baths. I said no thank you. I'm okay. I just like to have the Torah bath at home. I'm happy with that. Thank you very much. So have a great Sabbath. Have a great week ahead, and Shabbat Shalom. And until next week, great time.